You're listening to Resident Advisors Exchange. I'm Martha. Thank you for joining us. Helena Starr is our interviewer this week as we take a listen to her conversation with Chicago legend Jamie 326.
People go to dance their troubles away. People go to get lost in music for a reason, and it helps. It helps people. And with that being taken away, that's why it's been so hard for a lot of people as well. It's not just about people, get drunk and high and just jump all around. No, it's a community aspect to it. It's a lot more to it, and it's much more deeper than that.
Driven by the deep desire to make people lose themselves in the dance and forget their problems, Jamie 326 hails from Beverly on the south side of Chicago, a house music hotbed. The jewels of every Jamie 326 DJ set have to be his famous edits, and Jamie recently released a treasure trove of these with BBE Music. Jamie spoke to Helena about the roots of Chicago edit culture, the importance of caring for your body whilst touring, and about life in Rotterdam, where he's based. I hope that you have a wonderful listen to Jamie 326 and Helena Starr on RA's Exchange.
It's a real pleasure to now be speaking with you, Mr. Jamie 326. Your sets, your mixes, your edits have been such a staple in my household. So now to kind of sit across from you on Zoom, but still across from you is a real pleasure. So thank you so much.
Oh, you are more than welcome, and thank you. And once again, thank you for supporting and rocking my stuff. And it's crazy how, you made my jam reaching out and saying, hey, thanks, and look where we at now. So, the universe is something else, which is a good thing, So I thank you and appreciate you and everyone else, enjoys what I do, and create. I appreciate it,
100%. I feel like your energy and your vibe, it really does translate into the music that you play and you create. You were mentioning before that that's just something you like to put out, like in terms of how you are to other people in the world. Where do you think that's kind of stemmed from for yourself?
I believe one advantage I've always had is that I started off on the other side of the DJ booth. I started off as a dancer. And that, now that I look back on it, it gives me an advantage, because when I make something, still to this day, if it doesn't make me dance and go woo and feel it like I'm at a party, as well as I can envision what it would do to people, because I know what it did to me. If I can't create that feeling, or it doesn't give me that feeling, then I'm like, okay, I have to, start all over again. But I would have to say, that first from partying, as a kid, even from, my uncle having house parties, my family having house parties, and it's just been, in the system, especially in Chicago, that's just been, that's where it started, basement house parties, and then you graduated to school dances, then you graduated to the teen clubs or the skating rinks, then you graduated to either the underground or commercial. So it was the same like with my uncle. So, he was heavy into disco and things like that. So he was a teenager in the 70s. My mom, had a club, they threw parties. And I grew up in an apartment building where party would start in one apartment and then move to another apartment, then move to another apartment. And while those parties moved to different apartments, they also moved me to a different apartment.
You came with the parties.
Yeah. So I would sneak out, and then, they'll realize I'm finally in the party because I'm either trying to go to the record player or stuff like that. And then, get in the bed, that kind of stuff. So, yeah. And
so you've always been surrounded by music. It's been like a part of your life from such an early age.
Yeah, always. And I mean, it comes from my family. We own bars and lounges since I can remember.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's like I spent a lot of time in family bars and lounges, and then as well, like I said, family events. And Yeah, it's just always been around me, from my parents, from
Mm,
everybody. So growing up as a kid with two teenage uncle and a teenage cousin in the 70s when they were coming of age, I was surrounded by a lot of stuff. So I had my cousin was into funk and rock. My
mm.
mom was in the funk, soul, and disco. I had my uncle who was in the funk, soul, and disco. So yeah, it was just always around me, and then it just grew into something else once the culture changed in Chicago, and it got to a point where DJing was a thing. And
Mm.
at one time in Chicago, every block had at least two DJs on it. So it was like
Mm.
DJs everywhere. So it's like the whole hot mix culture and all of that spread it. So it's like the same thing. It really parallels just like the hip hop culture. You had street DJs, you had that
Yeah.
and the underground thing, and it's almost the same thing because you had
But a
dress,
similar
culture,
time, no?
yeah, and at
Yeah, yeah.
similar times we just didn't know, So
Mm.
as well as it's one thing that a lot of outsiders really don't understand is that in regards to like the term house, it doesn't just mean the electronic, aspect of it. We were calling and saying so many forms of music was house like years before the actual electronic part of it
That's
was
so
out.
interesting.
Yeah, so some things now that people consider electro and all this kind of stuff, we all call it house. So it's like
Mm.
we danced to punk, we danced to new wave, we danced to, what you call New York underground, all this kind of stuff, all
Just like an
mixed up.
amalgamation of all the
Yes,
sounds that you heard
yes,
on that time, like in those parties, in those apartment
yes,
blocks.
all
Yeah.
mixed up, all together. So it was a youth movement as well because it's like you had the high schools and all that. So it's like if you went to a popular high school as well as the Catholic school, so you could always go to the all girls school dances for the girls, and then the girls would come to like the all boys school dances. So yeah, it was like whole underground culture, with
All
this.
listening to
And
house music.
yes, house music, disco, all of that. And like I said, at
Mm.
this same time, you had kids who were like between the ages of 13 and 17 getting beat down by Ron Hardy, Frankie Knuckles, Lil Lewis, the gods. So it's like it
Mm.
was almost like a training ground. So, it's like a lot of us were exposed to some deep, heavy sounds as teenagers, compared to
Yeah.
and it also helped train a lot of us. So it's like I'm part of what we call the second generation. So we came up after, like some of the originals, but we had a whole
Mm.
nother segment because basically when we were teenagers, that's when it really went crazy and went all around the
So you were
city.
watching it.
I
Mm.
was right in the middle of it.
You were in
So
it.
yeah, 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 in it, starting from the radio and then to, my
Yeah.
first, neighborhood parties and going out and experiencing
Mm.
everything. And that was a whole experience within itself because you would go to the mall, you got to get your fit, you got to get tight, got to look good to go to the party. So yeah, yeah, it most
What would be
definitely
the,
it was
well,
a whole
that's
process.
interesting actually. Sorry, I was going to say the
Yeah.
fashion. I feel like that's something which I'm always talking about the music, but I'm always interested about like what the main look was for people. Like you said, going to the mall, getting a fit. Was there like a look that everyone would go for?
No, it was at one time because basically, this it's the real aspect of like the underground culture of house. It comes from black gay roots. So
Yep.
because they were all into fashion and things like this, and
Mm.
this is the early '80s, you know, they were wearing early like Armani, early Armani
Mm.
things and things like that. But as well, some of these people weren't purchasing these brands, but they were rocking them.
But they were
So,
looking
but they were
good.
looking good. So then it like trickled down. So you kind of had
Yeah.
a fashion sense, to it. So as well, especially like for my age group, we were wearing like Guess, K Swiss, Willie Wear. God, I could go through so many. Even going to the mall and buying stuff from like the shop called the Lark or Oak Tree, all this U Man, Benetton, like I have on that kind of stuff
Yeah.
is like it was classic gear. So you kind of had a look,
Yeah.
and it kind of went
Yeah.
from preppy to like house. So it was like you had to look. So you either wore Izod and Levi's and penny loafers, or boat shoes, with Argyle socks, that kind of stuff. Basically, you look like
I love
Carlton,
that.
kind of look like Carlton from the Fresh Prince. Like that's the best way to put it.
With the high top too.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. It was like that kind of hairstyle kind of really came in when Grace Jones came out with that album, in 1981. So it was like, but as well, only the cutting edge people kind of wore that kind of look and style. And then as it progressed a few years later, then you had big hair, big pumps, all of that. I
That's
had
amazing.
a nice pump myself. So yeah, you could see someone, especially if you were like on a train or whatever, you see a group of people and they look in a certain way and you just like, where the party at? Because you would just know.
You would know that's where they're going.
Or you would be on the same train going in the same area and you'd be like, oh yeah, they're going to the party.
Same
Yeah,
party.
it was like that. Yeah, going to the party.
So you were like you just said, you were actually a dancer first and foremost. You were in the middle of the crowd. You were listening to all the music and kind of soaking up this first generation of DJs, right? And then when for you did you make that switch, or was it kind of like a gradual thing? You kind of fell into it.
It was kind of, I would say mid 80s, especially like I just used to love, listening to the mixes and all that on the radio. And then like when I first saw a DJ really, mix in the real world, I'm like, oh, like this is the shit. But I really wasn't
This is
even
what
like,
they're doing.
yeah. So I really wasn't even like dancing or anything like that. I was just, watching the DJ. Then as I got a little older, then I, kind of came out my shell and really started, dancing and things like that. And we even had a DJ that danced and all of that. But at first, I really didn't. I was a natural. I never was taught, by anyone. I'm self-taught. I learned studying off the radio and watching people and things like that. And my friends at one time, they were actually much more better than me. And I used to get nervous. And when I would get on and play, like my hands would be shaking, all of that. And then I would mess up. But then they'd be like, Jamie, go on and dance, because I would.
And you're like, I've got this, I
swear. But I would be the one, always would like get parties going or whatever, start dancing and all of that. Then it went more into, I would say probably about 1988 is when I kind of got out of really like dancing and just studying DJs. And it's like a lot of the DJs, I can tell you the 5 DJs was definitely Ron Hardy.
Tell me.
Yeah, it would be Ron Hardy, especially when he was at the 2210 location of the Music Box. I used to get on when it was downstairs. Sometimes I'd hop up there and, sneak my way in and just stand in the corner and just watch.
Amazing.
Him, Andre Hatchett, who's a legend and a pioneer in Chicago, Harris Thomas, Gene Hunt, Terry Hunter. It's like a lot of these guys, Mike Williams, it's so many, and I don't want to just start naming, names because, I don't want to forget anybody, but there's so many people who were, inspiring to me. And then I would just study them and watch, what they would do and how they would control, the crowd. And as well, Lil Lewis. And as well, Lil Lewis. And so it's like, I would see what they were doing. And then my style kind of changed and I got a little confident. And then, it really changed once I started doing my own kind of parties and I started doing a lot of school events and school dances and things like that. And then, I got my own equipment. And then I was doing...
That was it.
Yeah, and I was doing any party and I wasn't making any money.
But playing the whole night, right? Because I feel like now, obviously, we see DJs playing for like 1 to 2 hours per set. But I mean, like you mentioned, Ron Hardy, that was like 10 hours long, like that all night, like non-stop. So for you watching them as well, you're watching them for that whole time, like really getting to know.
Yeah, so
and a good practice.
Exactly. So I would bring an entire setup, trade to records, all of this, and have the car sitting low, heavy, because it's full of equipment and all of that. And then always I could find help to get me in the party because they want to be in the party. And then at the end of the party, can't find nobody. So
You're
oh yeah,
lugging the records
yeah,
out.
yeah, and lugging everything. So it went from that to me connecting with some friends and together basically a sound system. And then we started doing a lot of sound setups at colleges. Some of the DJs who would come down from Chicago to play for like some of the black fraternity and sororities at these colleges as well as we were
Yeah.
doing them too. So yeah,
That's so cool.
yeah, so that's when it like really graduated into like a business. And so yeah, I had a mobile DJ company as well. At that same time, I still was partying, and at that time I was even more into like, we call it underground house, a lot of stuff that was coming out in the early 90s. And I was just going to the north side to eat it up, and oh my god, yeah, some of the most incredible times. And
I
definitely,
can imagine.
yeah, because I was still hungry for music, and I just wanted to hear, new stuff. I just wanted to hear new music.
Going to different venues and hearing all the new stuff, like it never stopped. That kind of that searching, and I guess that's like research. It's like finding the new sounds.
Exactly. You still had to do field work.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, something I was just thinking then was, I guess when you first started to hear these sounds of house, as we kind of, well, as it was then, these must have been like entirely new sounds that hadn't been created before. So that feeling, I can't even imagine.
I'm kind of getting chills now thinking,
me
just
too.
flashing back, because it's like, once again, it's like it was a sound that was coming out of Chicago that everybody else outside of Chicago, some of this stuff they never heard. So it's like, and we used to call a lot of this like just tracks, so it's like beat tracks and things like that, but it would get the parties going. And it's like, so it's like, I can remember, because I was following Lil Louis very heavy. So I can remember hearing like early versions of French Kiss, early versions of his hits. And then remembering when French Kiss, when he dropped it and what it did, and
to the
how
crowd.
and how he would drop these tracks sometimes. And then the whole party slam dancing, and especially at Medusa's. And yeah, those days, now that I'm older and I can at one time there were so many parties all throughout the city and some with incredible lineups where it's like you couldn't hit everything. So I had a Catholic girls' school in my neighborhood, so I was able to see sometimes a lot of these DJs without having to travel.
Oh wow!
But yeah, so I can recall hearing, like just like I said, hearing "Mysteries of Love" Larry Heard the first time, and going to go buy it. And all of these songs, and then seeing it grow and go into a whole nother, especially as it went into the 90s.
Of course.
And it's like, that's a part and a segment of Chicago house music culture and history that they really,
it's a part of like musical history, you know?
Yeah, but they really don't talk about it as much. They always talk about this one segment, this one, the glory, it's always the, Hot Mix 5, this, that. And I'm not taking anything away from them, but
of course,
went in a whole nother direction in the 90s. And a lot of these younger DJs went and they took it even more deeper than as well, more global. And it was a lot more different sounds. And yeah, you can't deny, especially at the time in the 90s with Casual, Guidance, you got Arch Records. It's so many labels that were in Chicago.
And just like coming out one after another, like nonstop.
Yeah, and it was all from Chicago, and it was some good, most definitely an incredible, experience. And then even, some of these guys who, has been well-known legends now, it's like I was there, when some of these tracks were made, that would be like, especially like with like Glenn Johnson. I would hang with them a lot. And so, yeah, I've seen them make some of these songs that are like classics. So, yeah, it's most definitely, I just never thought that what I'm just hanging out, I'm just doing, I like to do and learn things or whatever, that actually would be history.
That's a question I was going to ask, actually. in terms of you obviously being surrounded by this, did you always know that you were going to work and have a career in music, or was it just something that you were obviously just immersed in? Did it just come naturally, do you feel, or did you have other avenues that you wanted to go down?
It was always music. I
Yeah.
always was. I want to, I want to make tracks. I want to DJ. I want to DJ here. I want to do this. It wasn't even me thinking, oh, I'm going to go to Europe. And think, I didn't even know. I mean, I knew about Europe, but it's like I didn't know it was. I heard some things from some friends, but I'm still like, hey, I just want to play at this club here or do this or do that.
Yeah, the clubs that you go to.
Yeah. Like I want to get in there. I want to do that. So it actually, at one time, that was all I did, and then I kind of grew up a little bit, and then had a job. So I actually worked 15 years at a law firm. So
Wow.
so at one time I was DJing at night, working a day job, and
At a
you
law
know
firm.
yes, at a law firm. And then it got to a point
Yeah.
once I started traveling, and going
Yeah.
abroad, I still was
Yeah.
doing, all of this at the same time. So yeah, most definitely now, if you would have told me this in the 80s, like, hey, you're going to be, doing this all over, and touring it and going over the world. Hey man, no, get out of here, yeah, whatever, but it's become a reality, and
Yeah.
it's something that I don't take for granted. I most definitely don't take it for granted. It's been a lot of sacrifice, a lot of work, with a lot of artists and creatives. A lot of people see the glory, the polished stuff.
Of
They don't
course.
know all what sacrifices have went in, losses of relationships and things like that, strained relationships and breakdowns, whatever. A lot of people don't understand
Of
that
course.
it's a lot of work and sacrifice to
It
go
can
for
take
what
its
you want,
toll. Yeah.
and it can take its toll on you. So I most definitely don't take it for granted. But I decided like 6 years ago that I was going to. I believe Europe would be a place for me, to be, and then I made that happen, and it actually was a decision. But sometimes I still I think back and I'm like, man, I planned to do this a long time ago, but I'm glad I
Yeah.
didn't, because I wouldn't have been ready, and then
Yeah.
I would have been another failed moving to Berlin story, so,
But
so
you just did it a bit later.
right, so I'm like, yeah, I just got here a bit later, but I most
Yeah.
definitely, I tell people is that, have to at least be able to invest in your craft. So you can't just rough it and be a starving artist. If you can survive and be a starving artist, that's cool. But it'll make your journey a lot easier if you at least have a side hustle, some kind of part-time job or something where you can make some things happen and be
Yes.
possible. It will make, your life a lot easier.
Exactly. And like you said, being able to like put money into your craft as well, because it's not cheap. Like records aren't cheap. Like, going places, going to the clubs and stuff, like you need some kind
You
of
need
you need something to
resources.
help.
Yeah, yeah.
You need resources.
And that's the thing. It's like I did that, so I guess that's why I
Yeah.
kind of have a soft spot sometimes for some people. Hit me up and they be like, "Hey, can you think it's possible we could get on together?" And if they do it so nice, it's so cool. I mean, I
Yeah.
understand, because I know when I've gotten in or snuck in a club or party or something like that, the best fucking time ever. So, I understand that, but at the same time, I know that if you can't really invest in what you do, it's just going to be a lot harder for you. And even now, it's a lot more expensive to do a lot of things, especially with in regards to buying records. If you want to be a strictly vinyl DJ or what, yes, it's a sacrifice. And I mean, I made that
Yeah.
sacrifice years ago when I was buying records when I was in school. I would save my lunch money. I wouldn't eat.
Yeah.
I would go eat at my best friend's house
Oh my
for lunch
gosh.
because he lived down the street. because he knew I was saving up money to buy records. So those are the kind of sacrifices, some people aren't down to make those kind of sacrifices sometimes, and it's not easy and it doesn't happen. I've been at it for
Exactly.
some time, and some
Yeah.
people can get in, and it's a lot easier now due to technology and things like that, and social media. But a lot of those fly by night people who were hot 2 or 3 years ago, aren't.
Mm.
Some people, they may not
Mm.
be ready for it, and as well as like if you really get pushed out there,
It is a process. Yeah. Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard even
Mm.
as being established because you still have to try to find some kind of balance, and try to keep what little bit of sanity you have because there's so many temptations, there's so many things out there that can totally, throw you in the wrong direction. And most
Yeah.
definitely, I'm speaking from experience because in this game that we're in, it's all kinds of substances.
Touring and
Yes,
playing
yes,
like a lot of the time, like
yeah.
you said, it's you're in an environment which obviously everyone's there for the music, but you're around so many things. It's
It's
about having that balance, like you
yeah.
said.
You have to have that balance, and I got caught up and had to realize some things, and I it was a challenge at first, but I made
Mm.
it through, and I'm glad to say next month I'll be 2 years clean and sober. So I've been doing all.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I've been in this environment, and
Yeah.
actually the alcohol is worse than anything. But and
Mm.
it's there and given away, freely because they have it. So yeah, you want the biggest bottle of whiskey? Hey, here you go. You're our headliner. We got you. Here's two. So it's
Yeah.
easy to get caught up and as well get
Of
caught up
course.
in the hype. And it's like you have to try to keep yourself grounded and
Mm.
remember, that you're still human. You're not this superstar, and you can run yourself ragged, and it's a lot of wear and
Yeah.
tear your body and soul. People think touring and all this is so glamorous. Oh, you get to go to all these places. You get to, and a lot of times you don't get to see anything.
Mm.
Number one, you don't.
In and out.
Yeah, sometimes a lot of times it's an in and out, and then as well, it's like after you have to do 2 or 3 flights in a weekend, or flights in a weekend, or whatever, totally shot. After that,
Mm.
no, see, that's not on Instagram.
No, it's not. You don't post that. You don't post that
You
2
don't
p.m.
see.
in bed, like, help
Right.
me.
Yes. You don't see people. That's why
Yeah.
sometimes you don't see anyone post anything on Mondays because it takes them a while to get used to it. That
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of challenges, to this. So I even had to learn how to be able to coming off of a long flight, an international flight, while being
Yeah,
jet
of
lagged
course.
and things
Mm.
like that. And once I had that experience the first time and it was not a good set, my respect
Mm.
level for those who
Who are doing it? Yeah.
nonstop and
Yeah.
do it hard. Because once again, I was thinking the same thing. Like, oh, yeah, now I can't wait to fly. Yeah, I'm a. So no, I had to learn, and
Yeah.
learn.
When was that? Was that coming over to Europe?
Oh no, I was to Australia,
Oh my gosh.
and
That's 24
yeah,
hours.
yeah. So I was so messed up. So it's like I
Yeah.
learned you have to, if you're coming off a long flight, give yourself a day or at least a
Yes.
half a day, something to adjust so you'll be
Mm.
cool. So yeah, this is the kind of stuff you learn by trial and error, or you learn, and then it's
Of
like I
course.
just
That's
pass
it.
the wisdom on. I see who are going that way. I'm like, hey, let me tell you, and then they can listen or they won't listen. But a lot of times
They can learn.
they've learned, and then they come back and be like, hey, Jay, you was right, or hey, I get it. Thanks for telling me. I got it. So yeah, it's not a totally glamorous job, but it's still a great thing to be able to do what I love to do and
Exactly.
have people enjoy it. I still get
100%.
fun out
And
of
we
that.
do. I'm one of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, I still get fun out of that. It's fun.
Exactly. It's fun. And when did you move over to Berlin? You're in Berlin right now.
No,
Am I
no,
correct?
Rotterdam, girl. No.
Rotterdam.
Yeah,
Oh my
I'm in
gosh. I
Rotterdam.
love Rotterdam. I
Yeah.
came last year, 2020, just before the pandemic. I came
Okay.
over to Rotterdam and
Yeah.
I got to come back. It's great. When did
Oh,
you move there?
I moved here in 2017. I used to base in Amsterdam
Yeah.
for a few years, and then I came to Rotterdam, and a friend of mine actually told me, she was like, "You're from Chicago. Rotterdam is your fit." So I was like, "Okay."
Really?
And then I came, and I was like, "Oh yeah," and I just felt a vibe and an energy here, and then it
Yeah.
reminded me so much of home because it's like a
Mm.
working class mindset, real people. And I'm like, I love Amsterdam. Got a lot of good friends there, but no,
Yeah.
this is home. So yeah.
And did you ever come to London? Because I feel like there's such a notion that
Oh
people, if you're from the States, move to London and straight away. But no, not for
yeah,
you.
yeah. I actually spent time there, and it was like on my. I kind of had like three places, that I
Yeah.
said I would go to. I based out of London before as well, but it would have been London and or Amsterdam.
Yeah.
It was a little bit too much for my taste, and then I don't want to live back with 8 people, that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah. Fair
but
enough.
I love London. Definitely, I
Mm.
love London. I've spent a lot of time there, so I love London, and I had to learn. Times it's best to walk or take the tube. Don't take a bus. At a certain time because you're gonna be
I
stuck.
agree.
You're gonna be stuck. You know, in traffic and all that. So, but yeah, definitely, I have so much love for the UK period, but
Yeah.
London most definitely because I didn't even know that I really had like a following there, and
Mm.
it actually came from Theo Parrish playing a lot of my stuff at Plastic People, and
Mm.
it was like,
Oh,
and it's like I didn't even know this, then as well he was telling people, this is my stuff. So as well, I owe a lot, and he's a good friend, but I owe a lot to Theo Parrish because he really helped pick me, and most definitely in
yeah.
London. And then the first time I really spent time there, I did an NTS radio birthday party.
Oh,
And
amazing.
yeah, so that might have been like 8 years ago. And then I really experienced London. And I was like, oh yeah. And it's like I didn't know like this edit I did was like a theme in in Dalston, the purple music. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh what? So yeah, it's I guess the thing is once again, you can never should never take for granted dig you or dig what you do, and not get
Mm.
too comfortable and you're like, oh, I made it or I missed on that because as well, some of these people, that I met, they were a little younger than you. Now some of these people are like movers and shakers. They're, rising up in the game or they are up there. And it's like some of these
Yeah.
people, I just chatted with them. They wanted to bend in my ear. Hey, we could talk because I've always supported younger talent as well because this is the only way that you can keep, especially if they want to keep
Of
the
course.
funk alive. I'm gonna whatever whatever you want
To
to whatever
keep
you
the
want to
torch
know. Yeah,
burning.
yeah. Here you go. I'm not. I'm not the kind of person where I'm just like, oh, you don't know nothing about this or do that, talk down to somebody. But most
Yeah.
definitely, I will, educate them or tell them, and share experiences.
Of course. Do you feel like that's from when you were in Chicago going to, obviously you were once that person going to all of these shows and speaking to all of these people and wanting that kind of same, that same
Yeah,
rapport and that same
yeah,
kind of relationship?
yeah. But as well as like some of these people are standoffish, as well. So it's like you
Mm.
really couldn't just approach them a certain. You had to be smooth. That's the best way to put it. So it's like if I got cool with a lot of these guys, and then I would be able to, hang around them and watch them play
Yeah.
or whatever. So it's the same thing. I understand it, because as well as like I was that pesky. pesky little kid, it's like I would ask, it's records that I didn't know. What's that? What's that? I'm looking all over the turntable. I'm doing all that. What song was that? What song was that? Because I was just thirsty, for
Yeah, you're
knowledge
excited
and just
about
wanted
it.
to know it.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
yeah, so I never discount anybody who asks for advice or any kind of thing. Of course, yeah, there's some weird people out there. For the most part, if you have a little smoothness, and don't come as a, I'm still human. I'm still a
Of
person.
course.
It's like that's
Yeah.
just one part of me. So it's like just come to me, say, hey, what's up, or blah blah blah. I'm not going to be like, hey, get away from me, you filthy peasant. Nothing like that. I'm not gonna. No, I'm not gonna, be that way. But yeah, if you got some weird energy or whatever, yeah, I have to feel you out. It's like I've had some
You can tell
experiences.
though.
Yeah, because I've had some experiences. Just like whoa,
Really?
yeah, because sometimes people in events, sometimes they're elevated. That's the word.
They're on a level. They're on a level that we're
Yeah,
potentially not on.
right. A whole. I'm not
And
even
that's
trying
actually
to get to
something.
that level. I'm good.
No, no, no. That's actually a good place to kind of jump into talking about like your sets and your shows. Obviously, they're high energy, and I read somewhere someone said you have a deep desire to make people lose themselves on the dance floor and forget their problems, which right now, I mean, in this world is, I feel like, a super important thing.
Oh,
How do you prepare for a set? What is it that you kind of listen for or look for when you're preparing for something?
what's so funny is I kind of have been asked this before, and
Mm,
I'm like, a lot of it is improv. It's like
yeah.
I might have of course, as a DJ, you have certain mixes, you do things you do, or as well, it's like sometimes I'm like, hey, I might want to start off like this or go this way,
Mm,
but it's like for the most part, it gets to because I feed off of the energy,
of
of the
course.
crowd. So it's like I also have to be able to know, like, hey, if this isn't working, or I'm reading a room and it's not working, I need to be able to go in another direction and be cool. But I also had learned this, and I've shared this tidbit with people before, and it's when I was first booked to come to Europe, I was thinking, hey, I have to play this certain kind of way, or I have to play hard, I have to do this. And it was not the best set for me. And then
Mm.
what someone told me, a friend of mine, and then he shared this with me, and then now I share this with everyone. And he told me they booked you off of hearing your mixes. So they want you. Give them,
Yes.
so don't think you have to cater or change because I'm playing here, playing there, that I need to do this. No, they want your funk. That's why they hired you. That's why they bring.
Mm.
So give them that.
That's good
So
advice.
yeah, so that's basically what I do. So sometimes I can have my moves. It depends on where I want to go. Sometimes it could come from me rediscovering a song that I liked, or loved, and I'm like, oh, I think this is so long at a party, and then boom, I pull it out. Or sometimes you look at some people or zero in and be like, hey, they're going. Okay, I got this. Boom, they like this.
Yeah,
Okay, boom. So it's an energy exchange, and
of
then
course.
sometimes it's like I can get just into my own, and it's just like I'm doing just what I do. And so it's like sometimes I can't even really explain it. It's just like sometimes you get in the zone. I mean, you can understand it. Sometimes you get in the zone.
It's just a feeling. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's just a feeling, and then
That's the joy of it, though, right? You're just like in that zone, just going for it, and not really necessarily. I know it's so funny. I say, "How do you prepare for a set?" But you're not always like thinking as such. It's kind of just like
yeah,
innate.
yeah,
Mm.
exactly. So, and it's like sometimes those are the best things, the best sets, because sometimes it's if you and I've also told this to like DJs who were starting out or getting out, because I mean I used to do it. You make your make your pattern. We call them a pattern, but your program. You make your set. DJ before you plays one of your records, and then they panic.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I was gonna play that, oh, because because they've practiced this one mix, this one set for so long, but they never challenged themselves to be able to go in another direction if something happens. And it's like you have to do that. Like me and my friends, what we used to do, have a crate of records. It could be just records all over the place, and we had to mix them. The next record, like you got to make this fit. You got to make it fit. So it's like that.
It's a good way to learn too.
That also, got our chops tight. And things like that. So it's like you have to, challenge yourself as well, and it's very easy to get into playing, the same set, especially as a touring DJ, because it's like, hey, these people are on the other side of the world. They didn't hear me, but you'll be surprised because there are some people follow you somewhere or have been in another place. And then they, say, man, this is the exact same set, that I heard.
Yeah.
I've heard, people on the dance floor complain about someone that